My friend and I were building some homes in Guatemala in part of a mission trip. And during this time we were talking about gifting and spiritual gifts, and the verse First Peter 3:15 came up. And that reads, "As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good steward of God's varied grace." And she was actually upset at this verse because she was sure she didn't have any gifts. And we were going back and forth and we were talking about different things like natural gifts of like people who can play the piano really well or build homes or technical skills. And we are also talking about spiritual gifts, things like teaching and preaching and hospitality that are given by the Holy Spirit to every believer. And she was convinced God had skipped her, that God had missed her somehow in this gifting thing. And so we're going back and forth, and then eventually I asked her this question: where do you serve? Like, what do you do at your church? And her reply unlocked her answer, which was, oh, I don't serve. And my reply might seem a little bit harsh, but how I replied to her was, you don't have any knowledge of your spiritual gifts because you haven't used them. And she was rather offended at this. And I continued to explain. I'm like, look at what the verse says. It says, as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another. Each follower of Jesus has both natural and spiritual gifts, but they are used to serve one another. They're not just for our own edification or benefits or power. They're used so that we can serve together and serve one another. And they are used to both serve internally within the church to encourage one another, to build one another up, as well as externally to play out the mission of God, to serve others and be with people in the community. And gifts are like sponges of water. If we don't drain them out, they sometimes get a little bit moldy when you look at a sponge. Or if you try to do it too much with no water, you can be pretty ineffective using a sponge. But gifts are made to be used. They have a certain function, and that function is to serve one another. And this was a big change for my friend. She realized she needed to start serving. And a couple weeks later, she came up to me and said, I have gifts. I'm serving. And the same is true for us today. The same is true for all of us, is that if we don't really have clarity on our gifts and we're not in a place of service, we won't know how to use them. And so that's what our challenge is here, is let's work together to serve one another. And I'd love to hear in the comments or emails or different places how you've seen God use your gifting. But maybe you're like my friend. Maybe you're like my friend and you're like, I'm not really sure where my giftings are. Step out like she did. Step out and saying, I'm going to serve and I'm going to let God take care of the gifting because He will provide the tools that I need. All I have to do is follow Him. So reach out to us, and we may be reaching out to you as well, because there are lots of places to serve, whether that's in youth group, young adults, young professionals, men's group, women's groups, on the Saturday night, the Sunday morning, or places all over the church, whether internal to the church or external in our mission to love God and love others.